Okay, for question one, show the equation 3 tan squared x minus 3 sine squared x minus 4 equals 0, may be expressed in the form, and all they've got there is cos, like cos to the power of 4x, cos to squared x. So you look at that straight away and you go, we need to convert the tans and the sines to cos, and we can do that because that's not too hard. So the first thing is let's take tan squared and turn it into sine squared x divided by cos squared x, and then subtract 3. All right, this sine squared x we can turn into 1 minus cos squared x, and then finally we've got the minus 4 equals 0. So good progress already. And again, we have a sine squared, so we can turn that into 1 minus cos squared and try and simplify as we go. Oh yeah, that minus sign comes in and makes that a plus. Don't forget that the negatives get distributed as well. And up the end, we've got minus 4 equals 0. Okay, what we'll notice in what we're trying to get to, there is no cos squared on the denominator of a fraction. So we really want to get rid of that. And the easiest way, let's multiply both sides by cos squared x, which ends up meaning you multiply every term by cos squared x. The minus 3 that we have, the negative 3 and the negative 4, can go together and make negative 7 as well. So they would go together and eventually make minus 7. But we're multiplying by cos squared x, remember? So cos squared x gets to come over and join the negative 7. We've got the 3 cos squared. That's going to turn into 3 cos to the 4 because we're multiplying it by cos squared x. And then the first term, which is made up of different parts on top, we multiply it by cos squared. The denominator goes, and all we have left on the top is 3, and it's multiplying by the whole numerator. So it's going to be 3 minus 3 cos squared x. All right, this cos squared to the 4, there's a plus in front of that, and so we're really close to finishing now. Let's take the highest term out front, cos to the 4x. We've got minus 7 cos squared minus 3 cos squared turns into minus 10, and cos squared x, and finally we've got plus 3, and that equals 0. So now we know what a, b, and c are. Maybe it's worth saying that a is 3 and b is negative 10 and c is 3. And we have finished part A. So moving into part B, we have a hence, and that hence means, oh, that's what they told us before, show that it equals something. And so we're actually going to use what we just found instead in place of what they said, and we're trying to solve this now. X is between, notice it's between 0 and 180 degrees, so it's only half the circle, and also notice that X is in degrees, so we should have our calculator in degrees for this. So this is a quadratic that we're trying to solve. And how do we do that? 3, we've got 3 times 3, right, multiply a by c. 3 by 3 is 9. What multiplies to 9 and adds to negative 10? Negative 9 and negative 1 are our numbers. So we know that it can work out. We know that it can work out to be factorized. And in that case, since we know it can be factorized, we can start trying to factorize it straight away. Of course, you can work through a process to factorize it, but the coefficients, they can only be one thing. Like 3, the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1. So they have to be somewhere. And we know we're going to make a negative 9 and a negative 1. And the cos to the power of 4 has to come from cos squared and cos squared x. Okay, the 3 to the cos to the 4, that's going to turn into a 3. So we definitely need to multiply the 3 by 3 to get 9. And so then that 3 is going to be there, and there's going to be a 1 in front of the other cos squared. So finally, how do we get to negative 10? Well, we need minus signs in there as well. So the negative 3 times the 3 makes negative 9. And then the negative 1 times this cos squared makes negative 1. You add them together, you get negative 10. The negative 3 times 1 is positive 3, which matches as well. And then cos squared times 3 cos squared is 3 cos to the power 4. So we solved it kind of working in reverse, but that was a good way. All right, so that tells us now that cos squared x is going to equal, what we got, a third, or cos squared x is going to equal 3. All right, we're going to ignore the second one because cos is, when you do cos, you're limited to -1 to 1, remember? And that's as high and as low as cos can go. So cos squared is going to go as high and low as 1, 1 and 0, because when you square the negatives, it becomes positive. So the second part there is not going to give us valid answers. We just go to the first answer and say, well, cos squared x is a third, and cos x is plus or minus 1 on root 3. And at that point, we can either go to a calculator or see if it matches any triangles. It doesn't match any triangles, so we definitely go to our calculator. So the inverse cos of 1 on root 3 turns into 54 degrees. So one of our answers is 54 degrees. We go to 1 decimal place, as the front of the exam paper told us, 54 degrees. Now, because it's plus or minus, that means every quadrant has a valid answer. Cos is positive in the first quadrant, negative in the second quadrant, but that's a valid answer. So we take 180 and we minus 54.7, and we'll get our second answer, which is 125.26. So let's make the 2 3, and that's rounded to 1 decimal place, and we finish part B.